Good morning, sir. Good morning, everyone. Just going into the specifics, just to show the value added, what are the different forms. Couple of slides here. So I'll just continue with what Alex has mentioned. So if we take shrimps, the shell-on category, the first category that we see here, basically the far left, India is about 55% of the exports happened in the shell-on form. Peeled is about 35%, cooked is 10%, and value added we are less than 1%. When we say the breaded shrimp and the nabashi and all of that. So here on the left, the first two segments will fall into chapter 3, and the second two will fall into the chapter 16. So one thing I would like to bring out here in terms of the value addition and the manpower requirement. If we were to process 50 tons of the head-on or headless shrimp in the factory, we will need less than 200 people. Whereas the same thing, if you have to process a cooked shrimp for 50 tons, we're talking about 1,200 people. So that's the kind of employment generation between going from the left to the right in terms of value addition. That's something pictographically I just wanted to showcase here. And in terms of the price realization, if we see the head-on headless to the cooked segment, if we take that, we're looking at least 45 to 50% in terms of price realization. Skilling of labor, number one, we talked about just the number of people required, but the skilling of labor in terms of peel and stuff. So what we pay per kilo basis or a salary basis, we're looking at another 30% increase in the labor cost, just individual labor cost, who are involved in the breaded segment or the most value-added segments. Thereby increasing not only just the number, but their pay scale as well. So in terms of the skilling.
In terms of the processing, is it that labor intensive? Is it when you are doing breading and all? Is it that it is more machine driven, or is it? I mean, it's a manual. I mean, you are saying 4 times the increment has to go up.
Yes, sir. So basically, what happens is on the far left, you're just taking out the head, which is a very fast process, which takes about. Then, in terms of breading, you're doing the peeling, the deveining, which constitutes, so thumb rule is 1:4. If you need one person here, 4 more there. Then you have the breading, which can be manual in some cases, which can be machine. But what the importing countries see is more of the manual labor. Because importing countries would want to have made in USA if it's a machine breaded and stuff. But also once we establish ourselves, they would like to finish here also. Like Thailand and Vietnam, how they've. But it starts off with hand labor, and from the peeling, if we see, going into the breading, it goes to 1:4 again.
So, and is that the global standard also? Is it India specific?
I would say global standard, but India is still has to evolve. So right now, as a company, we just started the hand breading about 4 years ago, but COVID we could not because of the challenges and stuff. But our learning curve compared to a China, efficiency-wise, we are probably 60% below that. Because they've set the standards and said you need to do so many kilos, so many people. But we are nowhere so close to it. But eventually we'll get there. We got to about minus 30% as we started doing it for 6-7 months. And then COVID hit and we're restarting again now. So that's basically on the shrimp side. So now just going back very quickly. So Indian seafood opportunity, we're talking about 100 billion plus opportunity. So the segment itself, as we all know, it's 8 billion into exports. But if we see 99% is in frozen form in the exports. And whereas domestic, 99% in the fresh form, even though it's 64% when we talk about the overall. I mean, by our nature, frozen is considered to be somewhat of a taboo, and fresh is fresh for us. So 16 million farmers, second overall in terms of farm production. And employment generation, we've talked many times on it, so just a data point there. So the different parts, now I've talked more about shrimp, so we as a company are mostly into shrimp, so that's why I've talked a little more on that. So raw materials are being shipped from India to China and Southeast Asian countries. As we saw the numbers earlier, what were presented, China and Thailand are doing a lot more of the Chapter 16, the value-added products. We are at 10%, they are at 70%. So that's been the primary. And I'll talk quickly on why it is also. And cephalopods, when we talk about cephalopods exports on value addition, we need stricter controls so that we can go into the next level of value addition and go in. And it's the same thing, manpower, increase of price for the fishermen, and as we move to the value addition play. And tuna is a very big thing, and we've talked, and MPEDA has also given a lot of push onto tuna. So right now the whole fish or the gutted fish is going, but we're not into loins and steaks at this point. The value addition has to happen on the tuna side of things. So what are the key drivers in terms of key drivers? So now I don't want to highlight this thing about incentives all the time when we're talking in a government forum, but we just want to say what are the differential things that other countries have done. And Mr. Altaf had spoken earlier on how China had also acted very fast. So the differential incentives by the government, what India does is, whether we are talking about a head-on shrimp with the number of people that we need, value that is created, all the way to a breaded shrimp, it's the same uniform thing, whether it's a duty drawback or the scripts that we are getting, it's the same percentage for every form. Whereas when we see in Vietnam, the Chapter 3 versus Chapter 16, it's a 4% difference. So the processors are more incentivized to go into Chapter 16 value addition than to stick with a regular product. So it's a 4% difference between Chapter 3 and Chapter 16. And China, it's as high as 11%. And it's tailor-made to a lot of these things. Because China today, on shrimps, if we see, on fish, yes, there's a lot of tilapia which is going on in Chapter 3. If you see on shrimp, it might almost be at 90+% which is going on in the value-added form. And they're as high as 11% and 0 on the basic processing. That's why the incentives are 0 and the exports are also 0 there, and more on the value-added play. Now, skilled workforce, training is a key. How do we get this? The trainers coming from the nations that we have all developed. And the infrastructure development at the individual private level. And the last point which I just want to mention here is the capital allocation vis-a-vis the risk and reward. So what I mean by that is, as long as we are comfortable with the shell on and peel and there's a definitive margin, the high risk investment will not go into the value added. So there's no real incentive to go in as entrepreneurs, as private entrepreneurs, to kind of go into it. And the transformational cooked shrimp, the 10% that we are talking about, has just happened in the last 5 years. That is in direct correlation to the MPEDA subsidy which was given for cookers. MPEDA said we are going to come in and give you 50% for every cooker that you put. Existing facility or the new facility. And if we see, MPEDA would probably have the right numbers. What has happened in cooking, number of cookers which have been installed in India in the last 5 years probably went up 10 times from the base of a very small base to, and that's translated into the value-added cooking. So just overall interventions. So in terms of the volume drivers, so for example, breaded in US is a big value-added play which has a few million tons, which is being done from China, Vietnam, and the China Plus One story is working in the seafood space also earlier compared to pre-COVID. So they all want other nations also to come in. Now we have Nobashi and Shushi items for Japan. If these can be identified by the HSN codes and specific impetus can be given for manufacturing of this, that would really propel the growth. And infrastructure support for value-added machines like cooker, a subsidy by MPEDA. Again, what is the value-added item that we need to identify and push on? And the cooking machines were something which were identified about 5 years ago. and it was given, and we've seen the transformation in the last 5 years. And the data can be correlated with how many machines were installed and how much of cooked items are going on, which is chapter 16 items are going on in the last 5 years. And then facilitation of long stay visas for skilled workers. So as we know, India has a restriction. So we're not talking about the workforce, just the trainers. So each factory might need about 3 or 4 top level and maybe about 10 mid-level, just to get the factories up to scale. So when we started our breading process, we got 2 people from China, but they had to come in for 30 days stay and go back again and again reapply and go back. So the momentum is not built at the factory level. So if we have like the first 6 months or 1 year specific program which can be written from commerce to external affairs for a long stay interns, that will facilitate a lot of this. And as Alex had mentioned earlier, when we talk about this theme of processing as a hub in India, import of raw material for processing in India and re-export, what China has done fantastically well in the last 10 years, there are a lot of inbound opportunities which are coming in, especially from European and US companies, where they want to bring in the Alaskan cod and stuff to processing here, because now the China plus one story also. If in the last budget also there was this thing which was talked about in terms of coming up with a policy for import for re-export. If that can be facilitated, sir, in all the points that were mentioned by Alex, it can be unified scheme can be launched, so wherein the SIPs are more straightforward and given. So that will also help in transforming India into a processing hub. So thank you very much.